Welcome, everyone, to Conversations with a Mogul. Now, you may be sitting back and wondering, what does this have to do with You Define Wellness? Because you know me from You Define Wellness. Well, there are 8 dimensions of well-being, of which occupational is one of them. And I'm going to be sharing some statistics with you in just a couple of minutes about all the startups that happen every single year. And while we know that you're passionate about what you're doing as an entrepreneur, and that's why you're doing what it is, business failure is high. And sometimes we just really need to tap into the genius of somebody who has walked in our shoes. And so that's what I'm doing with this series called Conversations with a Mogul, Business Mogul. And Alex Moses and I met last year, I think it was sometime. And he impressed me. And I like his sense of humor too. So this is a lot of fun for me. But let me give you a little bit of information about Alex Moses, because you may not know this name. So at age 29, Alex sold his first business for 9 figures. We're going to talk about that, Alex, I'm sure. He's a serial entrepreneur and one of the most esteemed and respected human behavior experts. He consults and advises renowned, successful entrepreneurs and hundreds of companies worldwide. He has more than 30 years of experience scaling multiple companies to 8 figures. Wouldn't you like to be there? And now works with frustrated entrepreneurs and business owners who are seeking to have more freedom while skyrocketing their income. Alex, I have to say thank you at the get-go for agreeing to do this with me. I know this is not something you normally do, so thank you for taking time out of your day to share your expertise.
I'm looking forward to it.
Me too. Well, and I don't have prepared questions, so this is going to go wherever it's going to go. So I want to start with this, and I'm going to share my screen for just a minute so you guys can see I'm not just making things up in my head. So how many businesses are created each year by the Commerce Institute? You can see over 5 million businesses. It's actually over 4 million on average if we look over the last 10 to 15 years. Of those, the failure rate is high. 70% of new businesses will survive beyond 2 years, 50% beyond 5 years. If you're an entrepreneur, you've heard these statistics before, and you're sitting back going, yeah, well, I'm going to be one of the ones that survive for long term. That's not guaranteed. Alex, I'm curious. First question to you is, what is the number one reason that you see that businesses are failing?
Because they're trying to reinvent something that there is no demand for.
Okay, can you elaborate on that?
There's an old story of a professor in university in the business class, and he teaches the supply demand.
Mm-hmm.
And his question to the class was, if you want to open a hot dog stand, what is the number one thing you need to be interested in? What would be the most important thing?
I would say location.
Okay.
Not the answer you
People
want.
would say all kinds of things, but nobody answered it right. So people said you need to have like the best hot dogs, very attractive stand. You have to look clean. You have to look appealing. But the right answer is you need to have a hungry crowd.
Okay. You're right. You're right.
So if the people are hungry, they really don't care what your stand looks like. They'll buy it, even if you have the worst hot dog in the world.
True.
So demand is the most important part in the business. If there is no demand, there is no business. I think that's the reason they have the supply demand as a first class in any business school.
So you say that the number one reason that you see that most businesses fail is that they are recreating something that's already out there. So it's somebody who says, hey, that hot dog stand is doing really, really well. I'm going to open one too.
Yeah. Then you have a half a business of the other business, and then a new guys look at it and opens another one. It's a third of the business. Then the fourth one is a quarter of a business. And a few years later, nobody makes any money.
Yeah. I get that. Absolutely. So when you are talking with businesses, what are the principles that you are looking for that you know, hey, I want to work with this particular person? I know from firsthand experience, there's certain criteria that you are looking for. What are those things that you need to see in place before you can say, yeah, this is a business with a winning idea and I want to help get behind it?
First, we need to make sure there is a demand.
Yeah.
Second, there have to be uniqueness. Why would the customers work with you over anybody else in the industry? And number three is the most important one. The person has to be crazy.
Okay, explain.
Because if you're trying to operate based on common sense and a logic, you will struggle for the rest of your life. You'll never be able to succeed. You have to be unreasonably crazy to succeed in the business because it's not fun. It's not easy. And everybody on this planet will try to pull you down and not push you up. So if you believe that there is a demand for what you have and you want to deliver to the people that solution to the problem that they cannot solve on their own, it's not going to be easy. It might take years, but you have to be crazy to fight the world to get there, to win, and to get to the place where you're happy and you can actually deliver and help those people to get the solution to whatever the problem you're solving.
I hadn't heard it quite that way. So many business owners, when they have this vision and idea of what they want to do, they go out there. I have one client that I've worked with that has struggled. Somebody said to them, another business coach said, you need to get your LLC or C Corp set up, and you need to focus on that before you can even go forward in business. You're shaking your head. I love it that you're shaking your head. Explain why.
Why? First, you need to make money. The cash flow is the king.
Mm-hmm.
No cash flow, no business.
Mm-hmm.
Care about the name of your company or LLC or anything else is absolutely irrelevant. You can build that to protect yourself. The reason you build a corporation is a protection. You have no business, there's nothing to protect.
Truth.
What are you trying to protect?
Mm-hmm.
Making millions of dollars, yeah, you better build yourself an LLC or C corporation. The more money you make, the more layers of protection you need.
Mm-hmm.
But if you make no money, who cares what your name is? You have no brand. You have no company. You have nothing to protect. Just go out, find the first customers that you'll shock the heck out of them how amazing you are and solve their problem in a way that nobody ever could, so they can tell their friends. They can start making money and take their money to invest in wherever it needs to be invested for your protection, not your own money.
Love it. Let's go backwards in time. So this statistic that you sold your first business at age 29, can you tell us what that business was about and why you started it?
I have to be very careful
Okay.
because there wasn't NDAs.
Okay. Well, that's why I'm
involved.
not asking you for the name, but what prompted you to start it in the first place?
Solve a problem for myself.
You solved a problem for yourself. So you saw that there was
Yes,
a
I was
need for
trying
something
to solve a
great.
problem for myself.
Mm-hmm.
Like when we off the recording, I can tell you what the company is. I don't know if I told you before or not, but publicly unrecorded, I don't want to get lawsuits for millions of dollars.
No,
Yes,
we can do this
when you sell
superficially.
the rights of what you created to somebody else, you're not allowed to tell anybody that this is you did. It's like almost like a ghostwriter.
Mm-hmm.
You can write the bestseller in the world, but nobody will ever find out that you wrote it, and you cannot tell anybody.
It's okay. So let's talk superficially. This is okay.
Okay.
I will honor that absolutely. In a private conversation, you can fill me in on details. But you, at some point in your 20s, you said, I have a problem. Nobody is resolving it. So I'm going to create a business to resolve it, because if I'm having this problem, other people are having the same problem as well. So
Exactly.
you launched it. How did you get clients?
I didn't have a client, never had a client. Not a
You
single
had an idea.
all I had is a solution to the problem that somebody came in, let's call it venture capital fund. So it is a great deal and said, we can build it up. There is definitely demand for that. Can you fix that problem? And yes, I can. 18 months later, they sold the company for $225 million.
I'm just in awe. I love that. And it just goes to show that you sold an idea, a concept, a solution. And you didn't have to go through the routine of building a business, building a clientele, and all of that. So, I mean, for those who are entrepreneurs out there who are always thinking of a better way to have something or a solution to solve, you're just proof right there that, yeah, you can do it. Tell
90% of the businesses, not in probably close to 95% of the people with a lot of money, that's how they made their money. They found the solution to the problem and they solved it. Look at Mark Cuban. The way he made money is by selling the company that's actually by to Yahoo, what, for $3 billion or something?
Yeah.
They never even used the product.
They wanted it off the market.
Yeah, they wanted it to themselves, but it was not that good. So they never even used it. But they paid him $3 billion. So the most money made in this world is actually not by delivering the service, but creating the idea.
So let's explore that for a minute. So somebody's got a really great idea and they don't want to run it as a business. How do you get the attention of people who you can sell it to?
You need to find who sees this as a problem. Like, for example, the company that was sold for $225 million, it solved problem to a lot of companies who had to take action or they would lose business. And not only they would lose business, they would not be able to grow even if they would find a way to save the business. So my solution to the problem, generating them extra, almost double their profits while actually saving the business. If they wouldn't go that direction, they would go out. So let's go a little bit in human psychology, something we were talking about before the call. We all operate on fear.
Yeah.
There is nothing in our world that does not connect you to fear. We're born with like basic instincts. Let's take two, for example, fight and flight. It's based on fear. As a human being, you're born to survive. You know, the reason you need to survive because you're scared of stuff. That's what survival is. So the motivation of solving a problem is removing fear from somebody. Once you remove that fear, they're willing to pay you for removing that fear. The reason you're paying your electrical bill because you're scared of them turning it off. Not because you love the electrical company. So everything we do is trying to remove somebody's fear. The better you are at creating the solution that will remove somebody's fear, the more money you're going to generate. So the bigger the solution to the bigger problem. If I can solve the world's problem on electricity today, I can sell it for, I don't know, $1 billion. Just paper. I can literally write it on the paper. I was in transaction, as you know, I used to advise to some very powerful people. I was in transaction where $250 million were made during the lunch with the agreement on a napkin.
I've heard of that.
I was there. I saw that with my own eyes.
Yeah, you've told me the story of it. And
yeah, it happens almost daily. We just don't know about it. We think you have to work your, whatever, not be too disgusting, whatever's hanging behind you off to make it. It's not true. Even the Trump said all his money was made on a golf course.
Yeah, I've heard for years in business, especially when I was younger. that if I wanted to make it in business, I needed to play golf.
Yeah, I think an interesting story. I used to be part of the cigar club,
Mhm.
right? Because when I was younger, I had money and I thought this is like the coolest thing to do. I can go and hang out with the Sylvester Stallone, Schwarzenegger, smoke cigars, be one of the cool guys. And I could afford to be part of the club, even though they charge like 25 grand just to be a part of it a year, not total, not once. So I decided, so I thought you have to be cool. Like all the cool guys smoke cigars, and they had like Schwarzenegger smoking fat cigars on the newspapers, magazines. So this is where I need to be. Since I lived in Los Angeles, Beverly Hills was literally like 2 blocks away from where I used to live. I joined the Beverly Hills Cigar Club and got opportunities to meet old who is who. That very disappointed me in the world, but that's a different conversation. You will see that everybody there is just an average person. Everybody's the same. People are people. It's
Yeah.
irrelevant whether they have $1 billion or don't have a dime to their name. They're just people. When you have the exposure to all these people, you understand you're just as good as anybody else. You just have to think bigger, and that's the only difference.
I think that's an important point because I know that those who watch this, many of them would feel that, oh, this is not the league that I'm playing in. And they can play in it. They just maybe need coaching or help and guidance. Because I think the biggest question is you're saying, hey, deals are done around the table frequently on buying and selling companies and the concepts and ideas, but people don't know how to get around those tables.
You don't even need to get to the table. Most of the time, you're not going to be there.
Okay, so what's the secret, Alex, as to how do you play in that pool?
You have to be crazy. You literally have to be. You have to think out of the norms of average people. You cannot think in the norm of logic, and you cannot think. I can give you a story of how I end up working for one of the richest people in the world. And it was by pure accident. His assistant gave me a call and she said, if I can help, I'm not going to go into problem. If I can help him with a specific problem, I said, yeah, I can. Let me talk to the guy. And she said, okay, I'll talk to him. Then she calls me back. She goes, oh, he's not interested. I was like, let me talk to him. If he's got a problem, I can solve it for him. It's like 2009. Like I'm sitting, I have nothing to do. My business tanked at that time because of real estate. I'm saying, I need to do something. Let me go and talk to this guy. And she goes, he doesn't want to talk to him. I'm saying, just give him the phone and I'll talk to him. And she was like stupid enough calling me from his house and literally putting the phone into his hands to talk to me. What I found out later, she was actually his niece. That's why it's actually ever could happen, because that would be assistant. She would get fired on the spot. So I got extremely lucky. Luck has a lot to do with it, by the way.
Yeah, I believe so too.
So the guy told me, I'm not interested. I'm saying, okay. So I'm hanging out, but I'm curious. Now I got his home number, and he's got pretty big problem. I want to see who the guy is. And I'm looking up and I see the house is belongs, it's one, not only belong, it's one of the most expensive houses in Los Angeles County. And the guy who it belongs to just bought a house from Al Pacino for $30 million just for investment, just sitting there.
Sweet.
And okay, there's something probably a lot more to it. So I'm calling the guy. Now I have his home phone number. So I'm calling the guy, and he actually answered the phone. That was interesting. It was not his home. It was phone number in his office, direct number. So he answered the phone, which is his office was at the house. So he answers the number, and I tell him that this is, we had a conversation. I don't think we ended it right, and I want 5 minutes of his time. He gave me every excuse he could have, and I told him, you gotta talk to me, and let me make you this offer. I will come and solve that problem for you for free. And if I will not solve that problem, I will be your slave for a year.
Oh my gosh.
I will live in your house. I'll clean after your kids. I will wash your floors. I'll do whatever you want me to do for a year. You don't have to pay me for solving a problem. And if I don't, what do you have to lose? So he loved the craziness that I had. And he goes, okay, well, come in, but I'm not going to give you more than 5 minutes. So, okay, that's fair enough. So I came in, I was there for 3 hours, obviously. We
Oh
were
my
like,
gosh.
became like best friends for a while. So it's not normal to do what I did.
It's not normal, and yet, entrepreneurs by nature have to take risks. Absolutely. And I have similar risks on a much smaller scale that I've taken in my career to make the next step, where I wasn't quite willing to be a slave for a year, but
I'm crazy.
I was adamant enough that I am the solution to your problem. You need to spend time talking with me. And I did get those, and I did get every one of those jobs that I ever did that in. I've also gotten it as an entrepreneur. My first client was someone who I got my foot in the door. I pushed. I was desperate to get this client. It ended up being 3 hours away from me, which I didn't know at that time. I had learned, take out a map, figure out where this client is. And it propelled my sales career. That was 25 years ago. And it was just taking those risks. So you still haven't answered the question, is how do we play in that pool? How do we find those pools? But I'm going to let you off the hook on that one. When you're talking to a small business owner, and who maybe is not going into it with the idea of selling their concept, solution, or idea, they want to be an optometrist. They want to be a health coach. They want to build something there. I know those aren't your typical clients, but what kind of advice do you give to people who are starting out with those kind of businesses? Stop? Okay, why?
Because you're getting yourself into being a slave. If you want to deliver something to a lot of people, and you need to think as a business owner, not as a business person. The business owner create the system and the process that will deliver the solution. If you're the one who's delivering solution to the problem, you're just a slave. You're no more the employee with too many hats to wear and too many things to go wrong with, instead of actually being able to grow something. This is the catch-22 that's impossible to get out. And people stick in it for the rest of their life.
A lot of
Go ahead.
A lot of them do it because they can't take their expertise. There is no employer to take their expertise to. So that's why they launch, or they don't want to take direction from someone else. They want to do it their way. And that's why they hang out their shingle. And all they want to do is make a good living.
Which is a different thing. So now we're talking about, it's not a business owner. So I work with a business. If you're talking about being self-employed.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure the self-employed is a good route for people to go in.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're taking too much risk on their own money. Why not take the same risk on somebody else's dime?
Mm-hmm.
And build yourself up and get yourself connection in the right environment and the right industry, then step away into guaranteed income instead of stepping away into abyss.
When you say do it on someone else's dime, I understand what you're talking about, but I'm not certain everybody else will understand what you're talking about. Can you elaborate on that a little bit more?
You have to be, before you become an employer, to be good at something. Almost everybody I know who became successful, they either got there by pure accident, that's including some of the richest people I know. I can even cover people like Stephen L. Green, who's actually one of the richest people in this world. Most people do not know who he is. And here's the example. He's got into the business of real estate, and he was in New York. He wanted to make his first flip. So he bought the building, a business building, and they have a different grade of buildings like B, C, A. So he got a building B, but it looked so bad, so I had to fix it up a little. So he fixed up the entrance in the building. And when the people came in to evaluate, they said it's A. He goes, what is the difference between A and B? He didn't even know himself. It was his first flip. He goes, you got like a nicer entrance. You can put a doorman. It's going to be higher end. He goes, okay, so I can buy all the B buildings, fix them up to A level buildings, and there's a 20% difference on the spread. Financial, all of a sudden, now he owns 30% of Manhattan.
Wow.
This is over $3 billion a month collected in rent. And he didn't pay a dime for it. It was all free. As getting B buildings, convert them to A. So he puts zero down buying those buildings because the money he puts as down payment can be refinanced once you fix it to the A, B, because there is 20% gap. And they pay for themselves. And he can buy as many buildings he can lay his hands on for free and collect billions in rent today. I mean, you have to be intelligent. There's no question about it. I mean, it's not like anybody can do it. You have to understand the math. You have to understand accounting. You have to understand finance. You have to understand real estate. There's a lot of understanding. But nevertheless, if that would not happen at his first transaction, he would not be who he is today.
Okay, that's pretty amazing. So people hire you to be a coach for them. You're a high price coach, absolutely. And at what stage in a business is it viable to work with someone like you? Well, let's work with you. They have to have had some success, obviously, already.
It's a very hard question because I've built people like from nothing into 7 figures. One of my clients, he was making money. So you have to have like some proof of concept, obviously. So he was making about $8,000 a month. Then it was in May. So by a year and a half, by the following year, he has already made over $1 million. So within 18 months, he got into the year. So it's technically 2.5 years that he made over $1 million. But after he already got into that position of making $1 million a year after 18 months, from 8 months, and he was not good at following any direction. But he's got a good proof of concept. Even if you use very small fraction of what you learn, but you have a strong proof of concept, it will definitely work for you. But if you have zero, that's what I always tell people. I'm good at scaling things. I'm not good at creating things. I'm not a very creative person. At scalability, I'm pretty decent, based on my track record. I do pretty good at scalability. But if you have a zero, even if I scale it 1,000,000 times, it's still going to be zero. But if you have a $10,000, I can scale it 10 times. It's going to be over $1 million a year. You do 10,000 a month. It's going to be 1.2. So I can scale it 10 times if the concept is strong enough and there's enough need to scale it. So the solution and the proof of concept that people are willing to pay for it is more important than actually anything else. I don't care if you have a business that's worth $10 billion, but you're making no profits. Again, I can I cannot scale zero. I cannot multiply zero. But you might be in the beginning stages, maybe making $5,000 a month, but you have a solid proof of concept. You can turn it into millions, maybe even billions, depends how strong idea is. I mean, I had an idea that would turn into $4.2 billion from nothing, from zero. So it's possible. It's only happened to me once in 35 years, but it's possible. But if we have like, I'd rather not play this game. I'd rather have somebody who's got a solid concept. They can prove that their solution to the problem works, and there's the people who's willing to pay for it. I can show you how to scale that. So that's the most important thing.
Are there specific industries that you specialize in helping, or is it across the board?
As I mentioned a little bit earlier, since we all operate based on fear, financial fear is number one fear that everybody is familiar with. So anything that can generate money is the easiest to sell.
Anything that can generate money for the client, the
Yes.
end user, or your client, the business owner?
For the person I'm working with, if that person who hires me can generate income for somebody else by whatever solution they provide, generate more money. So the biggest sale I ever made of my own business, if you just follow again exactly the trend, people were in fear of losing their business, and they had an opportunity to double their profits. That's where I took this idea to 9 figures. So we can find the companies in the position, if you have a solution to the financial problem they have, people will always pay to solve financial problems. That's why the words ROI are so popular today. Everybody wants to see return on investment.
Drives me crazy.
Which is, that's the easiest things to sell. If I can guarantee you that you can give me $1 and you generate 10 in return, that's easy to sell. Anything else becomes more and more complex. Like health is very hard to sell because how you define how much you help that person.
Right.
It's very hard to sell. Anything that has to do with like spirituality, forget it. There's no money in there.
Okay.
So I'm talking about anything that can make people money. If you like, everybody jump on the board with the agencies, right? The marketing agencies, digital agents. Why? Because people want to make more money. If you can make them more money, they'll pay you. As long as they're making money with you, they're going to be paying you. It's pretty much the same as what I offer. I offer people money. So the reason people pay me and stay working with me because I'm making them money. The moment I stop making them money, they go on their own way. They don't really care about me, which is normal. This is the path that I chose, because if I choose my own business and you want to be in the business that's sustainable too. So you want to put people in a position that always stands between you and the money. I like the story of JP Morgan and his father when he was 10 years old. His JP Morgan was 1870 or something like that. I don't remember when JP Morgan was born, but very long time ago. So his father was a banker. His father was actually the richest man, one of the richest men in the country. Most people don't know the thing. JP Morgan, self-made. He's actually not. It's actually his father's money. He only became rich when his father died. So the story was he put $1 million on his table. We're talking about 1800s. So $1 million is a lot of money. We're talking about a time when you could buy a house for $500.
Right.
So he put $1 million on a table. He stood in front of a table and he looked straight in the eyes of his son, JP Morgan, and he asked him, "Why do you think I'm so powerful?" And obviously the kid couldn't come up with the answer, so he told him, because I'm standing between the person and the money. So if you put yourself in the position when you're standing between your client and the money, you're going to be one You're going to be the most powerful person in that client's eyes. And they will never say no, because we operate from financial fear.
Mhm.
We're scared of losing money. And we're scared that we're not going to have enough money for tomorrow. We don't know what's going to happen with our pension. And government tells you right now we have no money for Social Security left. The next check comes in, we cannot cash it. We have no more money. So they decide to print more money. That's a government solution to the problem. But again, if they have no money, what else can they do? They have no place to get this money from. They have to print it.
Right. So you indicated that you specialize actually in scaling things, upscaling, and getting them from
Scale up, right?
on that. What's the secret to that?
It's just understanding humans, understand why people do what they do. There is no real secrets in the world. It's just once you can understand yourself and understand other people, understand we all operate from the same place. Well, we all want to be appreciated. We all want to be loved. We all want to have people surround us who likes us and respect us. And we're all scared there's something might happen. We might lose our loved ones. They might get sick. We might get sick. We always think we're not good enough. And I don't care if you're Bill Gates or Warren Buffett. You can ask them, they'll tell you. None of them ever thought that they are good enough. There's no such thing as good enough. And we always want to have something that financially will protect us and our future of our families. So if you put yourself in that position that you're that person who can deliver it, makes you unstoppable.
Okay, so I want to go back to the question because you didn't answer it.
Okay.
So how does a business scale bigger? Is it advertising? Is it expanding the product mixture? Is it expanding the markets that it's selling in? I mean, when you're talking about scaling, how does one scale up?
Every single business is different, and that's probably the reason I didn't answer that. I kind of walked away from a question. There's no one solution to every problem.
Mhm.
Every single business is different. You have to understand who your customers are, who will benefit the most, and who's going to be in a position that they have to buy it or they're going to die. So think you're like in a chemotherapy business. People absolutely hate chemotherapy, but they have a choice. Either take a chemotherapy and feel like they are dying or literally die. And 9 out of 10 people, believe it or not, actually 10% do turn down chemotherapy, but 9 out of 10 people will go for chemotherapy. Even though this is like the worst thing you can do to yourself on this planet. But out of two evils, you pick the one. People scared of losing stuff. People don't want to die. So it's in the business. If their business is dying, if you put yourself in a position that they cannot say no, they won't. I mean, some will, but most of them won't. That's how you scale your business. And it's all research of who that customer is and getting in front of them absolutely relentlessly so they can believe you and get in front of them in the way that they're willing to listen to. Just like example, what I did, like I got in front of that guy who hired me working with the richest people in the world. You have to be relentless. It's not easy. You have to be crazy. You have to be creative.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And then it's also a matter of which pond are you wanting to play in? Do you want to play in the small pond or the big pond? And I'd say that most of the businesses that are starting up every year, they're playing in the small pond. They don't know how to transition to the big pond. And a lot of them don't even want to transition to the big pond. They're happy with just making what they're going to make and not having to give it to an employer. But there's also those that are the dreamers they have a vision, they're passionate, and they want to play bigger. They want every person on the planet to benefit from their solution. And yet they're stuck and they don't know what to do. But it sounds like those are the people that you want to meet, are the people who have the viable proof of concept.
Let me tell you something crazy thing that most people don't want to comprehend. It's 10 times harder to make $100,000 a year than $1 million a month.
Okay. Explain that.
It is. There is no explanation. Talk to anybody who makes this kind of money and they'll tell you.
It's the getting to it. That's the hard part.
It's a lot of work. It's very hard to make a little money.
Mm-hmm.
Very hard. It's that's what I'm saying. When the people want to go and be self-employed, this is slavery.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard. You have to wear a million hats. You have to understand everything. You have to stress about everything. You have to worry about paying bills. You have to worry about a million different things. But when you become a business owner, that's what other people for. They worry about everything.
Mm-hmm.
You just worry about how much money you're making, make sure you're productive, and make sure your business delivers, make sure your customers are happy. You
Mm-hmm.
don't worry about 99% of the things that's going on with the business. That's what the employees' headache is, not yours.
Final thoughts that you want to share with those who are out there as business mogul wannabes?
Don't be scared to spend money. They're not real anyways. It's just imaginary. The cash flow is the most important thing. The savings is the least important things because it might disappear. As you could see in the last 3-4 years, even if you have $1 million, the value of it probably $500,000. In today's world, it's a little depreciated half. And if they're going to print more money tomorrow, it will depreciate another half. So don't be worried about spending money. Don't stress about little stuff because you're just going to drive yourself crazy. I did it. I had 2 strokes. I had a heart attack. I'm telling you on personal experience. I've sweated the small stuff. It was bad. Everything I share is from my basic experience that I lived through. I don't like philosophies.
Mm-hmm.
I like things that are real. And believe it or not, money is not real. They're just numbers and they count. They don't even exist. If you understand the economy, we're operating in a promise on top of a promise on top of a promise. You give $1 to the bank and they promise 10 times of the money and to give it to you. And you go and spend it on the credit card that you probably will never pay off. And they're never going to pay it off to the promise that they delivering. It's all promises on top of the promises. There are no real money left on this planet. All we have is promissory notes that we're going to give somebody something in exchange for something. But money do not even have any value behind them anymore since what, 1913 or something?
So that prompts another question that I'm sitting here kicking myself. Do I really want to ask it? But I'm going to ask it, and that we'll see what your answer is. Especially with the what's on the wall behind you is what's driving this question. Would you agree with the statement that money is energy?
100%, that's all it is. But in order to generate more energy, you have to spend it.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're exchanging energy, you can only, first people forget what the meaning of the money is. It's an exchange currency. The exchange is the most important part of it. If you don't have exchanging it, it means it's not a currency. It has no value. It only has value if it's being exchanged. The reason economies tanks because people stop spending money. So the government tried to figure out the way, what can we do for people to start spending more money and buying more stuff? That's what turns the economy around. The moment you stop spending money, you're stopping your own personal economy, and you have no access of new energy coming in.
On that note, I'm going to say thank you.
Thank you.
This has been a fun conversation for me. It's probably different than what everybody was expecting to hear. I didn't know where it was going to go myself. And you've given me a lot of food for thought today as well. So, Alex, thank you very much for saying yes to this. And we'll see where it goes from here.
Okay.